There are very few television characters who arrive fully formed, instantly recognisable, and so utterly unlike anything else on British television that they feel less like a creation and more like an intrusion from another world. Catweazle is one of them. At first glance, he looks like a walking bundle of rags and hair, a wild-eyed medieval tramp who has somehow wandered into a children's programme by mistake. But within moments it becomes clear that Catweazle is not mad, not comic nonsense, and certainly not just a figure of fun. He is a wizard, displaced in time, confused by the modern world, and constantly outraged by the fact that it refuses to behave properly. Catweazle first appeared on British television in 1970, at a moment when children's drama was quietly enjoying one of its most imaginative periods. It was an era that trusted young audiences, that allowed stories to be odd, unsettling, and emotionally sincere, and that didn't feel the need to explain everything away. Into that world stepped a man from the 11th century, accompanied by a talking toad, and speaking in language that was just close enough to English to make everything feel slightly off. The series was created by Richard Carpenter, for whom Catweazle was his first television series. He'd been an actor in the 50s and 60s, and he wasn't an established name. The programme arrived without fanfare or expectation. It was, however, a clear statement of intent, a piece of children's drama that valued imagination, character, and intelligence over formula, and that trusted its audience to meet it halfway. The premise is deceptively simple. Catweazle, who is a wizard living in Norman England, accidentally casts himself forward in time by nearly 900 years. He lands, with considerable indignity, in the early 1970s, finding himself in a world of wires, machinery, cars, and telephones, none of which he understands, and all of which he assumes to be magical. Electricity, in particular, becomes his great terror and fascination. Catweazle refers to it as elec-trickery, treating it as a powerful and malevolent force that lives inside wires, sockets, and machines. He fears it, mistrusts it, and attempts to protect himself from it with spells that are, of course, completely ineffective, though he never doubts for a moment that elec-trickery itself is the problem. This misunderstanding of modern technology is one of the show's great comic engines, but it is never played cheaply. The humour comes not from mocking Catweazle, but from seeing our own everyday world reframed through his eyes. A telephone becomes a trapped voice. A television is a sorcerer's mirror. A car is a metal beast that must be approached with extreme caution. The joke is never that Catweazle is foolish, it's that modern life, viewed without familiarity, is genuinely strange. I say modern life, this is the 70s. Crucially, Catweazle is not alone. Early in the series, he encounters a young boy, Carrot, played by Robin Davis, who becomes his protector, guide, and reluctant accomplice. Carrot is sensible, practical, and good-natured, a grounding presence who understands both Catweazle's limitations and his dignity. Their relationship is the emotional heart of the programme, not master and pupil, not adult and child, but something closer to equals sharing a dangerous secret. In the second series, Carrot is replaced by another boy, Cedric, played by Gary Warren, and the setting shifts slightly. The dynamic remains similar, a child able to navigate the modern world freely, and a wizard who cannot, relying on trust, loyalty, and whispered explanations to survive without discovery. And then there is Touchwood. Touchwood, Catweazle's toad, is not simply a pet or a comic accessory. He is Catweazle's familiar, his confidant, and often the only creature Catweazle fully trusts. Catweazle speaks to Touchwood constantly, sharing his fears, his schemes, and his grievances. And while Touchwood never replies, the relationship feels entirely real. In a series full of strange ideas, the emotional sincerity of a wizard confiding in a toad may be its boldest. Much of Catweazle's success rests on the extraordinary performance at its centre. Geoffrey Bayldon's portrayal of Catweazle is a masterclass in controlled chaos. Bayldon does not play the role for laughs. Instead, he commits absolutely to Catweazle's reality. Every insult muttered at the modern world, every suspicious glare at a plug socket, every triumphant cackle when something briefly goes his way, all are rooted in character rather than comedy. Bayldon gives Catweazle a voice that is both abrasive and oddly musical, filled with archaic phrasing, mispronunciations, and sudden flashes of eloquence. He moves like a man permanently braced for attack, hunched, alert, and twitching, yet capable of unexpected dignity. It is a performance that could easily have collapsed into caricature, but never does. Bayldon understands that Catweazle is proud, intelligent, frightened, and deeply isolated, and he plays all of that all at once. The writing supports this complexity. Catweazle is funny, but he is also suspicious, irritable, and often ungrateful. He does not learn neat lessons. He does not soften into a cuddly eccentric. If anything, he becomes more determined to resist the present, clinging fiercely to his identity as a wizard, even as the modern world repeatedly undermines it. The series allows him that stubbornness. It never asks him to change in order to be acceptable. Visually, Catweazle is grounded in a recognisable, lived-in England. Farms, woods, scrapyards, and quiet villages provide the backdrop, giving the fantasy an almost documentary texture. This is not a glossy magical realm. It is muddy, ordinary, and faintly scruffy, which only makes Catweazle's presence more striking. He does not arrive in spectacle. He simply appears, damp, furious, and out of time. The special effects are modest and deliberately so. Magic misfires, spells fail, power is suggested rather than displayed. The emphasis is always on imagination rather than spectacle, keeping the focus firmly on character and concept. Catweazle ran for 2 series, a total of 26 episodes, broadcast between 1970 and 71. It was not a long-running programme, and it did not need to be. The story reaches a natural conclusion, with Catweazle eventually finding a way back to his own time. His departure is not triumphant or tragic. It is simply necessary. He does not belong in the modern world, and the modern world cannot contain him without diminishing what he is. That ending matters. Catweazle does not stay and adapt. He does not become a novelty. He returns home to a harsher, more dangerous world, but one that makes sense to him. It is a rare example of a children's program respecting its central character enough to let him go. Over time, Catweazle has acquired a curious reputation, half remembered, vaguely described as that strange wizard with the toad. Yet revisiting it reveals something richer than memory suggests. Its humour holds, its performances endure. Its central idea that progress is not automatically improvement feels quietly subversive even now. There is also something unmistakably British about Catweazle. It is sceptical of authority, affectionate towards outsiders, mildly anarchic, and deeply wary of anything that claims to be sensible, modern, and correct. Catweazle is not impressed by the future, and the programme never insists that it should be. Perhaps that is why Catweazle lasts, not as nostalgia, but as a reminder that imagination does not need to be explained, sanitised, or updated. Sometimes it can simply arrive, covered in mud, shouting about elec-trickery, and insisting that a toad is the greatest companion. And sometimes that is more than enough. Thank you very much for listening. Please give us a like and a subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed that. I'll be back with something else in a few days. Bye.